Okay, and Adina's coming on. Great, great, great.
Okay.
Welcome, Adina. And I think we
Good
are
morning.
good morning. I think we are good to go. All right. Please forgive the gravelly voice. The time is now 9:33 a.m. and I call to order the November 11th meeting for the LC Whitlow Stokes Freedom Public Charter School. Welcome to our board meeting. My name is Anton Smith and I am the board chair. We constitute a quorum for today's meeting. The meeting is held electronically by Zoom. We will do a roll call vote to indicate that we have a quorum. Um, let's start with, I'm going to order. Beatrice?
Do I say I here?
Say your name. I'm sorry. Just say your name.
Beatrice Carballo.
Adina?
Present.
Amy?
Present.
Erica? We may be having technical difficulty. I'll do Tracy in the interim.
Present.
And we have Eric McGreedy on the phone. Okay, I think we can proceed. There is an option for the board members and presenters for today's meeting to be on video, and some of us today will join by video.
Sorry, it's Erica McGrady. I'm here. I'm just technology challenged this morning.
Welcome, Erica. Thank you. Thank you. All right, we are good. Okay, so I think we're good. All right, at this point, once again, welcome everyone to the board meeting. I want to move to the approval of the minutes. We didn't approve our June minutes in last meeting, and so we've all received both the June 2023 meeting minutes as well as the September 2023 minutes. Hopefully everyone's had an opportunity to review those minutes. And is there a discussion about the minutes? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve both? I think every said needs to do them separately. Is there a motion to approve the June 2023 minutes?
I move to approve the June 2023 minutes.
Is there a second?
There's a second.
And one interesting thing I've learned is that all of our votes electronically have to be roll call votes. So we'll need to do a roll call vote. So I'll just call individual names and just indicate aye or nay. Beatrice?
Aye.
Adina?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
Erica?
Aye.
Tracy?
Aye.
Anton? Aye. Okay, so the June 23 minutes are thereby approved. Is there a motion to approve the September 2023 minutes?
Yes, this is Amy Richardson. I make a motion to approve the September 2023 board minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
I made a motion a second. Once again, a roll call vote for those indicating aye or nay for approval of the minutes from September 2023. Beatrice?
Aye.
Adina?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
Erica?
Aye.
Tracy?
Aye.
Anton indicates aye also. So the September 2023 minutes are also approved. So thank you guys. We can move forward from that. All right, great. Keeping the timing along. At this juncture, I will turn it over to our interim executive director, Bobby Caballero, for the interim executive director report.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our November meeting and happy Veterans Day. And thank you for all those who might be listening or are on our board who have served. Thank you for your service. We can go on and go to the third. There we go. So today we'll talk about our final count, our study tour meeting, pay scale updates, listening sessions, middle school updates, French Embassy partnership, and one of my favorite is the activities, And then later on, Julia Sinerkia, our chief of staff, interim chief of staff, will be doing a data presentation, a summary of what she did with she gave to the parents earlier in October, about our different assessments and park scores and map testing and so on and so forth. So we can go on ahead to the next slide. So our final, excuse me, sorry about that. Hold on a second. Our final enrollment count was 341 or 353 at Brooklyn and 341 at the East End campus. And our goal for the East End campus was 366. We were short by 25. But we have a couple of classes. The reason for that is we have a couple of classes in our upper grades that have historically been under enrolled. Our fifth grade class only has, I believe, 30 students. So that's 20 short from our projected goal from the fifth grade class. And then our fourth grade classes have 40 students, which is 10 short. And then, but most of the other grades, from pre-K through third grade are fully enrolled, so or about fully enrolled. So that's a positive. And our enrollment ceiling, and I apologize, right there it says our enrollment ceiling is 750. It's actually 700. So that's a typo. I don't know if we need to take that for the notes that it's 700.
750.
No. I'm sorry. It is 750. It is 750. My apologies. All right, we can move on to study tour planning. Next slide. And while we're moving to the next slide, we had a meeting. I don't know if I should wait. Oops, sorry. There we go. So we had a meeting on October 12th with parents from both campuses about our study tour. We chose a tentative date of May 16th through May 23rd. This year we'll be able to take both campuses at the same time. We were trying to figure out how to, take two full campuses, but we have enough that we'll be able to take, we have enough staff, and the way it worked out for this year, at least, we'll be able to take both campuses at the same time. We've already started communication with the partner schools in Martinique. We will start those communications with the partner schools in Panama. And when I say partnership, our students get to Zoom with their students, and they start to, they become pen pals, not really pen pals, more like email pals now. And they for one of the schools, like the schools in Panama, they are an IB school, so our students will work together on solving like an issue or something like that. And same thing, even though it's not an IB school in Panama, in Martinique, they also work together, so our students get to know each other through electronic communication. So right now, our numbers are looking for Martinique. We took a poll just to start better planning, and we have 28 yeses, 3 maybes, and 6 no responses yet. So that's a pretty good number for Martinique. Well, I'm thinking we'll have about 30 students. And for Panama, that's a smaller class in East End. So right now we have 18 yeses, 1 maybe, and 6 no responses. So we'll probably have about 22 going to Panama, which is, pretty good number. So
Bobby, if I can ask a question.
Yes.
And I won't validate my data on this, but I understand there's a certain degree of unrest in Panama. Are we tracking those kind of things to see, how that could impact our trips? Are there alternative destinations? Just, I want to make sure that those kind of things, I'm sure they're on the radar, but what
absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I've been actually in communication this week with several folks in Panama, including our driver, the folks at the hotel, and even our contact at the presidential palace. So right now there's some civil unrest right now in Panama happening because there's a something that the president signed that it's going to the Supreme Court this week, actually the Panamanian Supreme Court, to see if it's even legal. But it has to do with mining, and the Canadians, some Canadian company, not to get too much into the weeds, but some Canadian company went in and they want to mine some resources in Panama. And the folks are like, and it seems like the people are not getting any kickback. It seems like it's between the Canadian company and Panamanian government, but it's not really like, helping the people of Panama. So there's a big there's some civil unrest right now happening. So but I did talk to folks and they're like, they're hoping that it's going to calm down within the next couple of weeks, especially since the Supreme Court's on it. The Panamanian Supreme Court is going to vote to see if it's just or not. So thank you for bringing that up. So we have signed our contract with Ed Fuel. And so we have already met the mandate for that. We had to have like a one-time 7.6% bonus in the form of a bonus to the teacher. So that happened in October. And then we have to have at least a 12.5% raise from, I haven't looked at this. I think it was 22-23 school year. So we have already met that threshold. So once we finish the salary scale, some folks might even get a bigger bump. We should be finished with the salary scale sometime around March, which is excellent timing because that's when we start, giving offer letters and start hiring for next year and stuff like that. So people know exactly where they're at. And if we see that like there's an employee that they don't land within the salaries, the salary scale, wherever they land, they might get a bump, and then it'll be retro pay from August 2023. So folks are, they're pretty excited about that. And we're creating 3 scales, one for teachers and TAs, one for non-teaching staff, and then one for like campus leadership, coaches and learning specialists and stuff like that. So actually learning specialists, I think, fall under teachers. But folks are excited. I know I'm excited to get this work done, and folks some of the people who I've spoken to are very appreciative of this. So moving on. So we have what's called listening sessions over at over at the East End campus. And a listening session is a way to just, meet with grade level teams and to just have like an unfiltered conversation with them, what's going well, what are some challenges. And during that session, we also, ask like, what are some solutions to some of the challenges that you're having? They were completed by Julia, who's our interim chief of staff, Maribel, who's our chief academic officer, and myself. And we got some really good information right now. We're just we're kind of compiling everything together and see what the common themes are. So we're categorizing the themes. In the next couple of weeks, I'll report back out to staff with the overall results. Some of the positive things we heard, some of the positive things we heard from staff is that they really, really like the Friday coffee and the first Friday breakfast. They really like the teams who they're working with. Like, they like the new morning lineup routine. They said it's much more organized at East End this year. And we've heard from teachers that they like the lunch monitors and recess monitors this year. And this actually came out of a listening session from previous years, that, teachers don't have to do lunch with their kids or recess with their kids. So they're appreciative to have that time back for planning and other things that they have to do. Some of the negatives, again, we're categorizing, some of the negatives were space. especially for like our sped staff that, for them to do like their case management and stuff like that. Right now, they have their desk inside the classroom, and sometimes it's a little difficult for them to just sit and do work. So space actually for everybody. Target language resources, we continue to, teachers still continue to struggle with target language resources, trying to find the curriculum in French and in Spanish. They have to do translation and stuff like that, a little extra work. And behavior management support systems was one of the things that they also said, like to have a system in place to make sure that everything is followed. So, but it's a bigger list. I just named a few, and we'll get back to staff within the next couple of weeks. Moving on to middle school. So good news for the 24-25 school year, which is our current 5th grade class. We've been in communication with DCI, and they will have seats available. Our students will have preference seats for any Stokes students, both East and Brooklyn students. So we will be able to accommodate all our students who want to go to DCI next year. I sent a letter out to the 5th grade parents signed by myself and Mike Roskam. We did a mutual letter together. Mike Roskam is executive director over at DCI. And I sent it out to the 5th grade parents. I realized that it probably should have gone out to the whole school, but I will be doing that within the next few days. And some of the things that were on the letter is that myself and Mike will be leading an information session at each campus. So we'll have an information session, a DCI information session in person at the East End campus, and then one at the Brooklyn campus. The buddy days will have our students, it's a shadow day where our 5th grade students will visit DCI for like half a day. So we'll have one, each one will go. So East End will go and Brooklyn will go. One of the things that all 5 feeder schools are talking about, I know that we have like 3 commitments and others might jump in, but we're going to have a middle school fair just to help provide more options for parents, that may or may not get into DCI, because next year we're definitely going to have a little bigger challenge, but at least for this year, we're all good. And that was, that's a big relief for some of our parents. East End, the PTO at East End in their September meeting, they created a middle school expansion committee. So, and they reached out to myself and Ms. Bryant. So we will be meeting with them to discuss other options and what are, a path forward for the 25 and 26 school year and beyond. There's some challenges in front of us, but I think that collectively we will be able to find a solution that that can accommodate folks, both in the Brooklyn campus and East End campus. And I'm going to turn it over for a minute to Ms. Bryant so she can talk about our DCI school convening.
Thank you, Mr. Bobby. Just a quick summary. Last week, DCI and all the member schools had its first convening of the school year. It was a meeting that was designed to really build on a convening that we had at the end of last school year, when there were a lot of questions raised about member schools' individual growth and DCI's capacity to absorb all of that growth. As we all know, Stokes has doubled in size since the creation of DCI, and all of the other member schools have either expanded or have plans to expand in the coming few years. And so last week's meeting, there was a legal presentation during which a local attorney explained in some measure of detail the status of the agreements between Stokes and member schools in DCI and the DC Public Charter School Board. And in this presentation, he confirmed what we have been discussing previously, that under our current agreements, although Stokes and all of the member schools are currently chartered from pre-K through 12th grade, all of the member schools have assigned our rights and responsibilities for the operation of 6th through 12th grade over to DCI. So under our current agreements, the individual member schools cannot expand from 6th through 12th. But DCI and its leadership and board of trustees are in the process of determining if or when or how they should expand, because they do have the right to do that. In the interim, as Mr. Bobby just shared a few minutes ago, DCI will be able to accommodate all of Stokes schools graduating 5th graders this year into DCI's 6th grade class of 24-25. And at the same time, we at Stokes School continue to meet with other school leaders and city leaders to talk about how to expand quality seats, particularly on the middle level, with some kind of language programming east of the river. So there continues to be active planning and discussion, but just wanted to update you on those activities. Mr. Bobby.
Thank you. Moving on to the.
We're stuck again. Hold on.
We're stuck again?
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry. Hold on a second.
And while Ms. Bryant is doing the tech, Anton, I don't know if I answered you did talk about the unrest, but I had a conversation actually, Ms. Bryant, earlier this week about a possibility of where to go, what would be easy. And we're thinking that, and please don't quote me, but because we haven't looked at all, but we're thinking that Puerto Rico might be like an easy place where we can go do immersion if Panama doesn't work out. So we do have some contacts in Puerto Rico. So that'll I'm gonna start maybe an alternate plan around January. I want to see how this plays out. It's also an election year for Panama. So hopefully things quiet down a little.
Perfect. Thanks, Bobby.
The French embassy, they did a seminar on bilingual education, and it was great to have 3 of our very own presenting. They were panelists. We had Ms. Bryant, we had Mr. PDK, he's a coach at East End, and we had Ms. Elodie. Elodie is one of our interns. We have interns this year. We have 3 from France, 1 from Spain, and 1 from a French-speaking African country. I don't know which one. Cameroon, maybe? Is he from Cameroon? So anyway, we have some interns, and so we got invited to be a panelist on the seminar on bilingual education, and it was great to have our staff presenting there. Overall, our partnership is very, very strong with the French embassy. They just elected a new general counsel. They have a new educational attaché. I hope I said that correctly. And the lower left-hand picture next to Mr. PDK, that's the new attaché there. And we will have, actually, they've committed to visiting Stokes sometime in January. So we'll make sure to inform the board when they come. And our relationship with the French embassy is so strong that it made me realize, like, we need to partner with a Spanish-speaking embassy, and we used to partner with the Panamanian embassy. We had a pretty good partnership. So over the next few weeks and months, I'm going to try to rekindle that relationship with the Panamanian embassy. So, And now activities. Gotta
I don't know
love
why we
technology.
keep getting stuck. I'm sorry, Mr. Bobby. Hold on.
That's okay. While we're waiting, this is one of my favorite parts of, I mean, of course, schools, academics, but, we believe in educating the whole children and giving them, um, opportunities to go outside and do different celebrations. And it's still learning, just in a different way. So we had several activities in the since we last met over like the last, in September and in October. The first one, we can go next, was the 5th grade overnight trip to Hard Bargain Farm. We've been going there since 2002. And this year, the 5th grade from East End went, and they learned about conservation. They become environmental stewards. They learn about farm life, milking cows, feeding the pigs. Feeding the pigs is pretty awesome because you can hear them. They have the slop bucket is what they call it, and the pigs, you hear them squealing when they hear that little cart coming towards them. You can hear them squealing from honestly from like a quarter mile away. So that's great. We had the fall outings. This is Brooklyn went on one day to Watkins Park, where they visited the nature center. There's a farm there at Watkins Park, and there was some hiking and outdoor activities that they did there. And then East End, they went to Cox Farm over a period of, I think, 3 trips. And they had the hay ride, pumpkin patch, and petting zoo. And it's a great way to get the kids out. It's not easy taking an entire school out on a field trip, but we're pros at it by now. We also had our Hispanic Heritage Month celebrations at both campuses. So we celebrated throughout, during morning lineup, we had different presentations from different countries, different folks, and different staff members talking about different Hispanic and Latino heritage. And then we had culminating event at each of the campuses, and you can see some of the pictures from the culminating event. We had our Taste of Stokes at the Brooklyn campus and our Fall Festival at our East End campus. And they were very similar. We had local, at the Brooklyn, we had local food vendors, different demonstrations, and it was a great family fun activity. And we had, a few parents from each campus joined both the Fall Festival and the Taste of Stokes. The East End Fall Festival was the following weekend, and they had like photo booth and food and family fun activities for everyone. So it was a great community building event that's been going on for a while at Stokes. And then finally, our student government. Student government elections, while Brian's pulling it up, student government elections took place on election day, on Tuesday. So, and that's been traditionally when we have our student government election on election day. And we have so that's the swearing in ceremony. That's Zach Parker swearing in our student government from last year. And the folks that you see on the right-hand side, that's our newly elected president, vice president, treasurer, and secretary. And once again, this November 16th at 9 a.m., all the board members are invited, but we have a very special board member swearing in our student government. Ms. Amy Richardson will be swearing in our student government this Thursday. So if you want to join us, that'd be great. And that will take place at the Brooklyn campus. And that's all I have for now. If there are any questions, comments, or concerns, I guess.
Thanks, Mr. Bobby. That was all really helpful. I have a quick question. I'm going to go all the way back to enrollment. I'm just curious, because it sounds like, we were a little under on enrollment. Can you just share a little bit about what do our recruitment efforts look like for each of the campuses?
So we do, we advertise in newspapers. We put up like little, those yard signs. We, of course, the big one is the My School DC
Ed Fest.
Ed Fest. It's called Ed Fest, and that's happening on December 2nd for elementary, and then the following weekend, December 9th for high school, maybe junior high and high school, but I think elementary is happening December 2nd. Yeah, so it's historically there's the oldest class, which is now fifth grade class. They've been under enrolled since we've been at East End. It's a new school, and I think this year we had a few more folks leave just because of the uncertainty of middle school. We lost some folks to like a DCPS. We lost some folks to basis and to Latin, which take students in the fifth grade. So I totally understand as a parent, of a rising fifth grade students, if I have the opportunity to get into a school that can take me all the way through high school without, and not certain that I can get into DCI, then, I understand folks having to do what's best for them. So, but moving forward, like, we're going to be working with East End families, with the East End committee on expansion. But yeah, did I answer your question? You said,
Yes.
what do we do for recruitment? Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Before we move on to the next section, I want to make sure I acknowledge two board members who have joined us since the beginning of the meeting. Miss Kira Orr and Mr. Carlos Bonner, who are board members who are on the call. Okay, at this point, we'd like to move to the staff presentation section.
And for this, we're going to have, so do you want, at this point, SB and company to do their finance and then followed by Bill?
Whatever makes the most sense. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever makes the most sense.
So that's funny, Tiana. Representing your AK, I like it. So Tiana Wynn and Renata Rice. Reese or Rice? I'm sorry.
Race.
Okay. They'll do the audit presentation.
Okay, well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for making time for us this morning. As Bobby mentioned, I did go and pull out in the back of the closet because I had on blue the other day, and Erica and Beatrice, complimented on my blue, but I told them that was rare, more likely to be found in pink or green. Green's my favorite color. But all jokes aside, we're gonna go ahead and go over our presentations. I'll have Renata bring up the presentation. We did have a chance to meet with the finance committee at length last week, on Thursday. And so we walked through the audit results. So if you can go to the next slide, please. So what we're going to go through today, we're not in as much detail. We'll walk you through the scope of services and the results, provide you with a summary of our assessment of the control environment, the key processes, and recommendations that we've had, as well as an update on the prior year recommendations. There is a new accounting standard. We've been talking about it for a couple of years as it relates to how it is that long-term leases now have to be recorded within the financial statements. There was no impact to the school for June 30, 2023, but we've been working with management and in discussions for when the East Campus lease is executed. We do believe that that is when you will have to officially adopt and implement that accounting standard. So I expect some changes in your fiscal year 24 presentation for leases. Next slide, please. So from a scope of services, we did the June 30, 2023 financial statements. It includes an audit in accordance with uniform grant guidance because you receive federal dollars in excess of $750,000. We'll also prepare the federal Form 990. We recently became aware you won't require a 990T this year. That's the taxable return, which in the past or historically have been filed because of the operating results of Stokes Kitchen. But without Stokes Kitchen, you will no longer need that tax return. There's some audit schedules that are in the report as required by the charter. We've included those and we've looked at those and haven't taken any exception to the reporting. We also do an audit in accordance with the ERISA 103A3C as it relates to one of the benefit plans. That audit was submitted prior to the October 15th deadline to the IRS and Department of Labor. In conjunction with that, we prepare your federal Form 5500s. Again, those are the returns for both of your defined contribution plans. Last thing I'll leave you with before I turn it over to Renata, we are available for year-round consultation. So, we, talk with management a lot, during the audit, but also during the year. But wanted to just make sure that governance is aware and that we don't take for granted. We work for governance. So should you ever have any questions or concerns or just things that you want to bring to our attention or talk to us about during the year, just a reminder that you have that access to SB and Company. With that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Renata to talk about some of the results.
Deanna. So going over our results for our financial statement audit. So we are planning to issue an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. That's a clean opinion, is the best opinion that one can get. We're also planning to issue an unmodified opinion on compliance and financial reporting. We have not found any material weaknesses in internal controls during our audit, and we did receive full cooperation from management. On the benefit plan audit, there is a 103A3C audit. We issued an unmodified opinion as allowed by the DOL, and we filed the Form 5500s for the 2 employee benefit plans by the deadline October 15. Here are some areas of audit emphasis. So areas where we focus during our audit. So revenue recognition, including any donor restrictions, grant compliance, collectability of receivables, completeness of liabilities, cash reconciliations, capital expenditures, lease accounting, as Tiana mentioned, debt accounting and compliance, and then the allocation of expenses. Here's our summary of recommendations. So we went over all the recommendations in detail with management and the finance committee. But as you can see, there's 2 new recommendations for the current year, and then some status on the prior year recommendations as well. On the prior year recommendations, some have been implemented. So those we discussed and tested with management during our audit, and then some implementations in process as well. And then going over our audit results, we have 3-year comparative statements, and I believe we also provided a full draft of the 2023 report to governance. But you can see here on the financial position that the main changes from 22 to 23 are on the cash. There's an increase in cash. It's related to the decrease in grants receivable. But overall, the net assets have been pretty consistent since 2021. On the statement of activities too, on the revenues, the main source of revenues is still the per pupil allocation that's received from the DC government. And you can see there's some federal grants that have been, that were increased last year with the receipt of the federal grant related to ESSER. that ESSER grant has been going down this year as most of the relief from COVID-19 grants are ending. On our single audit results, so for this year, we audited the ESSER grant, the Education Stabilization Fund, and that accounts for 37% of the total federal grants that were received during the year. This audit's still in process, but we are planning to issue an unmodified opinion on internal controls over financial reporting and compliance, and on our report and compliance with the requirements for major programs. That testing is still in process. The new accounting standards, and Otiana mentioned, related to leases. So there's no impact this year, but we are expecting to have an impact on leases next year as the lease agreement is executed. And with that, I'll end our presentation and I'll open to see if there's any questions.
And well, I'll turn it back over to Carlos or Bobby.
I don't know if Carlos has anything to add. And then Dr. Smith, did you want Bill to present anything?
As applicable, if there's anything for Bill to present, it certainly, yes.
Okay.
My addition is just, it was a very thorough report presented by SB and company team, and the finance community found everything to be aligned. And I just applaud the school again for working diligently with them to give them all the information they needed. So we were very pleased.
Thank you.
Thanks. Well, thanks so much. Ms. Moore just popped across my screen as one of the bubbles, so definitely always a pleasure to see you, Ms. Moore. And
it is good to see you too.
Hope you have a good Thanksgiving. I'm sure you've got some great things planned.
Thank you. I'm planning to plan them.
Good.
Thank
Take care, everybody. Have a great
Bye.
holiday.
All right, take care.
Bill is prepared to present if you want to just see his presentation.
Yes.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Good morning.
Okay, this is going to be quick. I know you've seen a lot of numbers, and what I want to do is present our first quarter financials. And to say ahead, first quarter financials are always a little bit tricky because you're really just getting started, and you really sometimes you're not getting the full, the trend at where you're going to go. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up our first quarter financials, which look, can you see this?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Okay, first off, as we look at this, this is our budget versus actual. This is year to date from July 1st, 2023 to September 30th, 2023. And as we look at this, if we look at total income, our total income is $1.1 million over budget. And, cause for celebration. However, it's not a complete trend. What it is, if you remember when Bobby was talking about DC retro pay, if you look at this one line, they've already given us the money. So the money has been recorded as income, and we have not paid it out yet. So this is where I'm talking about the financials look a little bit skewed, because the income's there. We're showing that, we're $1.3 million ahead of budget. Normally you think, oh, good, we're trending this way, it's going to end up that way. Not necessarily. I do want to, I'm glad we have it. It's a wonderful thing to have the money, And as Bobby said, we did pay out the retro pay that was mandated in the middle of October. So that part has been done. But as you look at everything else, our expenses are good. Our expenses are right about on budget. We're a little bit below budget. So, you know, overall our surplus is that income, which is like $1.1 million. So that, you know, like I said, this is a quick and dirty presentation on that. As I said, the main thing is that it's almost $1 million we received from DC for the teacher compensation. Everything else seems to be moving along fairly well. And at the next board meeting in January, I'll give you my first forecast for year end. That by that time I'll be able to see the trends, see where everything has gone on. But at this point, this is where we are on the income statement. Are there any questions on the income statement?
So Bill, the 986 that you have highlighted on the screen.
Yes.
My understanding that over the course of the year, it should be dispersed.
Yes. Yep. You know, this is one of these where whatever we have there is going to go out. You know, as much as I would like them to just give us the money and let us do with it what we want, there's a plan to spend it and it will be spent. So you will see it all in the income. And once again, when we did the budget, we did not budget this DC compensation. So you're going to see both increases in income and also increases in expense, most of it in personnel salaries and benefits.
But the corresponding expense is that already included in the budget, or you need to?
No, neither one of these are they're not in the budget. That's what I'm saying. But you know, we'll see them as they flow through. Like here, it shows that we have a surplus in the budget of $1.1 million. If we had spent it all, you'd see in expenses that we'd have a deficit, that we overspend our expense because we spend it out. But you know, it's really a wash. From the budgeting point of view, it's a wash. Money comes in, it goes out. So it's not going to, it shouldn't impact our bottom line.
Yeah, I just want to make sure people understood that you've captured the income, but the expense is not there yet, and you will capture that, and it will be dispersed.
Yes.
I had a quick question, just following up from earlier when with talking about enrollment and the targets being slightly lower. I was just curious, this budget, I'm assuming it factors in that. Does it factor in the original target, and by missing that target a little bit, will that impact the budget, and then will we have to toggle that with a higher fundraising goal to square that?
Well, from my point of view, the higher the fundraising goal, the better. You know, to be honest with you, sorry, the more the merrier when it comes to income, as far as I'm concerned. But yes,
I concur that as well.
As far it will, I mean, and that's why I said about the forecast that will be factored in where our enrollment then hit the budgeted items that we have. The other things that we have to factor in, which we don't know, and we'll have a better, is where our grants are, you know, our federal grants, and if there's any other, you know, private grants that we get, that, you know, we'll have a better idea where we're going to be. And I'll share all that with my initial forecast. That'll be at the January meeting.
Thank you.
Any other questions on that? Okay. I can do a quick thing on the, let me send the balance sheet because okay, here's our balance sheet. And as all of you know, as I said before, the real thing that I always am concerned about is cash and total assets. And I think Tiana hit on it, that our cash was up, and it was up at the end of the year, and it's up now. And most of it you can see, because if you look at the receivables are down like $916,000. Most of that is from those federal grants that were for the last fiscal year, but we actually didn't, they ended up, most of the work, we didn't get paid for them until probably December or January of this past year. So we have that. We also have the additional cash comes from that DC teacher compensation, because that just came in. But overall, as you can see, our cash position is good, and it usually is at this time of year. It's better than last year, but once again, that had more to do with the receivables, because our receivables are down. Our liabilities, that's usually not any major issue. We have our payables, and that varies depending on the timing and when we get the invoices, things like that. But that's pretty much all I have for my presentation. Are there any questions on the balance sheet? Any other questions about anything else, about the audit, about? All right.
I'll just add, the finance committee has met with Bill and staff and gone through these reports previously. And so we were fully aware of all the inputs and the strategic plans of managing the budget for this year. So it's very refreshing to see the status of the balance sheet where we are. Primarily the cash position is Bill, but it's also, I think the equity position also looks good as well. And then they also seem to have good operational plans in place for managing expenses. And I think one thing that's positive this year, that we got money in sooner than in the previous years, which was sometimes reflected in the statements and made people have some type of trepidation on the status of the school. But I think, as you can see here at the beginning of this school year, the school is showing very good, solid financial standing.
Well, I want to thank Bill for your excellent fiscal management, and Carlos for your and your committee's awesome oversight and governance of the process. So thank you both.
Thank you. Anything else? Going once, going twice. Have a good weekend, everyone.
Have a good weekend, Bill.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Bill. And our next staff presentation will be coming from Julia Sinerkia, our interim chief of staff. And this is a summary of the presentation we had for First Friday for October, with the parents, discussing the data and, the different park scores and different assessments that we have done through, from last year with our students from both campuses. One thing you're going to see is the numbers are different at both campuses. But one thing to keep in mind also is that, it takes a few years to establish routines and procedures, and, we have a whole new batch of kids over at East End. And, the Brooklyn campus has been established already for at 20 years versus 5 years, East End. And then in the middle of us, we're just getting back from COVID at East End. Once we started establishing a school cultures, COVID hit, and it kind of derailed a lot of what happened, at East End. Julia will go in more details on different things, but just keep in mind also that it's not a measurement of these, like the park score, as I said before, it's not a measurement of intelligence. It's just a measurement, of where it's a snapshot of where how a student does on an assessment. So with that, I will hand it over to Julie, and she'll share her screen.
Good morning, everybody. Bear with me. Sorry, I'm just having to scroll through some of these slides quickly. There we go. All right. Good morning, everybody. My name is Julia Sinerkia. As Mr. Bobby said, I am the interim chief of staff. I've worked at Stokes with assessment data for many, many years now. So I'm here to talk to you a little bit about our 22-23 data and assessment and demographics and attendance and family engagement data. You will see that our performance on these assessments varies. And I just wanted to kind of preview that because the different assessments assess different types of skills. So you're gonna see that in some assessments, both schools are doing very well, in some assessments less, and there's a bigger difference in some of the scores between campuses on those. And before we get started on looking at the data, I just wanted to preview for you some of the things that we've done based on this data. One of the first major changes that we made is that we changed our instructional model in our upper grades, 2nd through 5th grade, so that students have math and English language arts every day. And they also have French or Spanish daily. So instead of having a model where we have 2 days in the target language and 2 days in English, what we did was we split the day in half for the upper grades so that they receive English and math every day and target language every day. Teachers, learning specialists, and instructional coaches collaborate weekly to analyze and adjust instruction based on the data, both from these standardized assessments, but also assessments that they administer in the classrooms. They use that data to support differentiation and small group and targeted instruction. The multidisciplinary teams also work together to support families to provide academic and behavioral supports to students. We've also expanded the access to Boost Reading and Dreambox Math to both campuses for all K-5 students. So teachers can use those supplemental programs in the classroom, but families also have access to them at home. The instructional leadership team meets weekly on each campus to review this data and plan for instructional improvements. We have continued access to federal funding to support ongoing interventions, including out-of-school time interventions. So we've expanded our high-impact tutoring groups, particularly at the East End campus. And Stokes is also continuing to support the whole child with social, emotional, physical wellness, field trips, like you saw Mr. Bobby talk about, building students' enjoyment of music, art, and physical expression. And I wanted to highlight some specific strategies that we have targeted for East End. We are working with our interim principal and our instructional coaches over there to do strategic planning for instruction. We've also stabilized staffing with experienced educators. I did professional development for teachers, and we continue to do so, working on improving classroom culture, increasing family partnerships, targeting attendance and truancy rates, and we're continuing to address interrupted learning from the pandemic with high-impact tutoring. I wanted to share, before we get into the assessment data, some of our demographics, attendance, and family engagement data. And this set of data is for the East End campus. Last year, our academic partnering goal, so this is parent-teacher conferences and what we call academic parent-teacher team conferences, which is a parent-teacher conference, but for a whole group of parents. We had 83% of our families attend in the first one and 70% attend in the second one. Our goal for the year is at least 85% of our families attending academic partnering meetings. And then I pulled attendance data from 21-22 to kind of, this is the most recent publicly available attendance data. So you can kind of take a look at this, what our in-seat attendance rate was relative to DC schools in general. So East End's data is in the orange and DC schools data is in the gray. You'll see that our in-seat attendance rate was 89% in 21-22. At East End, we had 36% of students, 37% of students who were chronically absent, which means that they were absent for more than 10% of the school year. And the 41% of them were truant, meaning they had more than 10 unexcused absences in the school year. So there's clearly a lot of work to do on our attendance rates at East End, making sure that we have students coming to school every day ready to learn. Because we know that we can't, all of the good instruction that we do, won't have an impact if students aren't there. I just wanted to share a little bit about our demographics as well. So again, East End is in the orange and DC schools are in the gray. So we have 23, in 21-22, we had 23% of students were at risk. In our park tested grades, that was 33% last year. English language learner population was 9.5% and students with disabilities was 11.7%. And then you can take a look at the racial and ethnicity demographics here. Show the same set of data for Brookland. 87% of our families attended academic partnering in the first session and 84% in the second session. And had a 93.7% in-state attendance rate in 21-22, which has continued to increase since then. 16% were chronically absent and 15.7% were truant. Brookland campus in 21-22 had 9.1% at-risk students. English learners were 16% and students with disabilities were 13.4%. And this is our demographic makeup in terms of ethnic race and ethnicity at Brookland. I want to dive into our DIBELS assessment data. So Stokes administers DIBELS to grades K-5 3 times per year. DIBELS assesses important foundational reading skills, including phonemic awareness, phonics, and accurate and fluent reading. We use this data in the classroom to target skills for students and to provide guidance for families. And set realistic and personalized goals for students' growth. Find out a lot more about the specifics of DIBELS if you click on this link. And these are beginning of year scores over the last 3 years for students at their composite scores, the percent who are at or above grade level. The Brookland campus is the green line and the East End campus is the orange line. So at the beginning of year this year, 62% of students at East End were at or above grade level in reading on DIBELS, and 71% of students at Brookland were at or above grade level on their composite score. Both of those have seen score growth since 2 years ago when we started this assessment. And East End saw a pretty significant growth from the beginning of the year, 22-23. iReady Math is another one that we administer 3 times per year in K-5. It gives information about how students are performing relative to grade level benchmarks. So it'll assess whether kids are at mid or above grade level, early on grade level, 1 grade level below, 2 grade levels below, or 3 or more grade levels below. And again, if you would like to learn more about iReady, you can click on that link and there's a lot of information there.
Hi, Juliet.
Yep.
They can't click on the link because you're the one presenting at the end. Do you think maybe you can either put in the chat?
We have this presentation. Is it shared with board members?
It is. I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
When you thank you. If you'd like to access the links, they're in the presentation, but if you'd like me to drop it in the chat, I'm happy to as well. This was the end of year data for 2023 about percent of students who are meeting or exceeding grade level expectations. At East End, it was 44%, and at Brookland, it was 61%. I'm flying through these assessment results, but I just want to make sure that we have all of the information in front of us so that we can take any questions. So I'll stop for questions at the end. But if you have any, please feel free to interrupt. The Park assessment is the assessment that's mandated in the District of Columbia for third through eighth graders and some high school classes. Our third through fifth graders take reading and math. Our fifth graders also take DC science. And it tests students' attainment of grade level standards. It is an assessment rather than purely assessing basic skills. It also assesses analysis. It requires students to do a lot of higher order thinking, writing, analysis, and all of that. Again, if you'd like more information about the test, I highly recommend, if you haven't yet, to take a practice test for Park, so that you can understand kind of what the assessment is testing and how those kinds of questions are asked. I think it's really useful. As a preview, DC has changed the name of Park and is taking it on as its own. And so next year, instead of Park, we'll have what's called DC CAPE, the DC Comprehensive Assessment of Progress in Education. OSSE claims that the two assessments will be comparable in terms of assessment results. So we'll see how that actually turns out. But they claim that we'll be able to compare our Park results to our DC CAPE results. Park has 5 performance levels. 1 is did not yet meet expectations, 2 is partially met expectations, 3 is approached expectations, and 4 and 5 are meeting or exceeding expectations. It's really important to note that although 4 and 5 are meeting and exceeding expectations, it's important for us to look at level 3 as well, because many students who are able to score at a level 3 have basic skills, but maybe haven't yet been able to do the analysis and higher order types of questions. So many schools and the DC Public Charter School Board, as well as OSSE, also look at level 3 and above. Just want to pause here for a minute to let you all take a look at this data. This is the Park English Language Arts longitudinal data. And I've included here both the 3+ levels and the 4+ levels for Brookland, East End, and DC schools. For East End, we only have 2 years of data because last year in 2022, or 2 years ago in 2022, was the only time that East End started taking Park, because that was the first time that they had 3rd grade. So there's just 2 years of data for East End, whereas Brookland has data from 2015 and beyond. Let's take a moment here and look at that. As you can,
Julie, can you, you were probably going to do that. If you want to explain why 2020 and 2021 are not showing up.
Oh, yep, thank you. 2021 and 2020 and 2021 was when we were closed for the pandemic. So DC students did not take Park in 2020 or 2021.
Julia, can you explain why such a big dip in scores on both campuses in grade 4 from their grade 3 scores or percentage scores?
Yep. So I would say that that was true for East End's 4+ between 2022 and 2023. So this group of students, which were our 3rd graders in 2022, and this group of students were our 4th graders and 3rd graders last year. So the group of students has changed, is one thing. So this result includes only 1 grade level worth of students at East End, and this includes 2 grade levels of students. So there was a drop at East End in the 4+ range. The 3+ levels stayed approximately the same in ELA here. And at Brookland campus, there was a large growth in both 3+ and 4+. So 66% of students scored at 3 and above in 2022, and in 2023, 75% of students scored at 3 or above. And this one also grew 11% for the 4+ here. So we did see a dip in scores at East End. I think that there are a lot of reasons for that. One big reason was we struggled to maintain consistent staffing in the upper grades, particularly 4th grade at East End last year. So that we know that it's really important to have experienced educators, consistent experienced educators in the classroom. I think that's one of the reasons why we saw a dip in scores for the 4+ for ELA at East End. Also, we're still really seeing the impacts of our pandemic school closures. So the group of students who took this test for the first time in 3rd grade in 2023 were, they needed a lot of additional intervention and support, and we are definitely targeting them with additional resources and additional tutoring. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Julia.
I also just wanted to take a minute and share the performance level distributions, because I think it's also important to see that where our students were scoring. So the blue is level 5, which is exceeding expectations, and the green is meeting expectations. The yellow is approaching expectations. So you can kind of take a look at where these are across the sector. So I also put a comparison for other DC charter schools here to see how they're doing. And these are LEA level subgroup PARCC performance with that same performance level distribution. And I know this is a big slide with a lot of data on it, but I'll go through it briefly. So these are our Black or African American students. These are Hispanic and Latino students, our multiracial students, our white students, female students, male students, English learner students, students with disabilities, and economically disadvantaged students. Folks who fall into that economically disadvantaged student category are folks who qualify for government benefits like TANF or SNAP. So you can see that there are some achievement gaps that need addressing here, which is consistent with national data, of course, and it is something that the instructional leadership team at Stokes takes very seriously. And we look at all of our data analysis using with the subgroup lens, making sure that we're targeting interventions towards those folks who really need it.
If I can just point out that one student can meet like 3 of, you can have a African American male student who's ELL and economically disadvantaged.
Yep.
And disabilities, so you can have one student touch on several ones.
Yeah, and because historically and still this is still true, our N size, the number of students who take this assessment, is quite small relative to like the DC public school system or other systems like that. And so you 1 or 2 students and their performance really have a big impact on our scores in terms of percentages. This is that same slide with our 3+ and 4+ for math. So again, we see here that the Brookline campus in both 3+ and 4+ saw pretty significant growth. 12% of students, the growth between 2022 and 2023 was 12% of the Brookline campus, bringing us to our highest level of PARCC performance since students started taking PARCC, and showing a really big recovery from pandemic. We did see a drop in East End scores in math as well. But again, I do just want to point out, this PARCC score is showing that 14% of our students were at 4+ at East End at proficient. But if we think back to a few slides ago when I showed iReady, that percentage was 44%. So these assessments do test different things, and taking one set of data is not necessarily the best choice in terms of analyzing how students are doing in general. For our math performance levels, Stokes as the LEA, Brookline, East End, and DC charters. And this is our subgroup performance in math.
Julia, if I can make a comment, I think your point about small sample sizes and is extremely appropriate. So maybe going forward for future presentations of this type to actually include the sizes of folks in that particular group, because as doom and gloom as the numbers may appear in certain categories, if you're talking about 8 students or
Exactly.
it makes a difference to understand the context of it. So this is
Thank you for that feedback. I
Sure.
appreciate it. Our ELL and students with disabilities, those categories are our smallest, and they tend to hover around, this end size is something around 15 students for both of those groups. Thank you. And I just one last assessment to show you. It's our NWA MAP assessment. It's given 1 or 2 times per year. Last year we did it for our K through 5th graders. This year we're just focusing on K to 2nd. We felt that we had too many standardized assessments. We were taking too much time from instruction to test. So we are reducing the number of assessments in the upper grades. We're targeting it for K to 2nd this year, but last year, and I'll show you the data for K to 5. It's a nationally normed assessment, which means that students all across the country take NWA and they norm them based on that data set. And I just very briefly want to share with you how the assessment data is shared, because it's not like the other assessments where we see a grade level benchmark. It's a percentile based assessment. So a percentile is the value on a scale of 100 that indicates the percent of the distribution that is equal to or below it. So when we see a student scoring at the 50th percentile, that means they're scoring average nationwide. When their growth is at a percentile of 50, that means that they're growing at an average rate. So the goal, right? Or, I mean, of course, we want our students scoring higher than is average nationwide. But if you look at how students are scoring, we want to look at the 50th percentile as average. The other thing that NWA, it shares quintiles, and that is a distribution of 5 equal groups in which a percentile can be distributed. And so I just wanted to share that before we dive into the data. So this is our fall to spring growth and achievement percentile for NWA at East End. And again, so you'll see here that that our scores are really different than you might have seen on Park. So you can see that our 4th graders at East End in math were achieving in about the 43rd percentile on average, and our 3rd graders were achieving in the 20th percentile, the 25th percentile approximately on average. And so compare that with the Park scores, which were at 14%, right? And so you can see that there's a difference there. Similarly, our 3rd graders last year were at the 40th percentile in achievement as a median, and our 4th graders were at like the 43rd percentile. And this is that same data for Brookland. So you can see that there is still a difference in scores between the campuses, but students are scoring above the national norm in terms of achievement. Our STAMP for SE is our adaptive assessment that assesses target language proficiency in reading, writing, listening, and speaking. Last year, 2nd through 5th graders completed all 4 domains, and kindergarten and 1st graders just completed listening and speaking because the test isn't appropriate for them to do the writing or reading sections. It aligns with the ACT TOEFL proficiency guidelines, which is how we ask our teachers to teach and assess our target language proficiency. Typically, we administer STAMP in March, and we also provide the STAMP data to DCI for our 5th graders to help them with language placement in the 6th grade. So you can see that levels 1, 2, and 3 are novice, and that's our lightest green. And then levels 4, 5, 6 are intermediate. DCI hopes that students, by the time they reach 6th grade, are scoring at a level 4, so intermediate low in writing and speaking, and an intermediate mid, level 5 in reading and listening. And this is a general snapshot of our entire LEA's data. So you can see that our strengths are in listening and reading, and the students score a little lower in writing and speaking. And that is typical of language attainment. As students go through language attainment, they get receptive language first before they're able to produce language. And this is the average composite score on STAMP based on the years of the program in Stokes. Next year. So you can see that by the time they're reaching 4th or 5th grade, if they've been with us the whole time, students are scoring at about an average composite level of a 4, which is approximately what the expectation of DCI is. I'm ready to take questions.
Hi.
Thanks. Oh, go ahead, Amy.
Julia, just going back, just quick questions on you mentioned on one of the first slides the reason the change to the instructional model, and can you just tell us a little bit more on why that change?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we were seeing, particularly at our East End campus, is that our target language proficiency levels, because we had that, it also was true at Brookland, because we had that pandemic school closure. One of the biggest impacts on the pandemic school closure on our data was on our target language proficiency data, because it's really challenging for students to learn another language if they're not immersed in it. And so when we had them on Zoom, it was very challenging for them to maintain their proficiency levels. And so students in the past had been taught half of the time in math in the target language. And so when we were seeing low proficiency levels in the target language, we were concerned that students weren't receiving as much math information as they could have been if that instruction was being done in English in the upper grades. Does that make sense? And so as that math vocabulary gets more complicated, teachers at particularly East End were having to spend a lot of time really going over what those words meant rather than actually teaching the math content. And so we hope that with this change, students are able to attain more math knowledge, particularly in the upper grades. We also felt that it was important for students to be receiving both languages each day in the upper grades. We've heard from some teachers that making sure that they had a touch point every day with students was important. And so instead of doing it 2 days and then 2 days in the upper grades, we're splitting it half and half the day.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll let Adina go, and then I have a couple more questions.
Great.
Thanks, Julia. That was all really helpful. This is probably more than a comment than a question, and I'm not even sure if it should be directed at you. And I don't think that this is like solely a Stokes issue, but even just looking at some of the data around parental engagement, right? I'm going to speak as a parent and as someone who I guess has a general understanding of like how to digest and interpret data, that when parents receive the results and the summary, I'm just wondering, and again, I don't think that this is uniquely a Stokes issue, but I'm just thinking about parents, particularly parents who, you all continue to work hard to try to bring in and engage around their students' educational journey and academic journey. That when I get these results, and again, as someone and I am not a math expert at all, and I tend to get turned off by data, I can only imagine what that must feel like for parents who are not even close to where I am, and I consider myself to be pretty low on like the on the ability spectrum, and so I guess what I want to say is like, and you all are probably already thinking about this, but I just think that it would be good to continue to think about alternative ways to engage parents when they receive this data in a way that is so that they don't feel overwhelmed, which probably in a lot of cases results in not paying attention or not wanting to get engaged because it can feel intimidating. So I don't know whether or not there is like, are there office hours maybe with maybe you and the learning specialist? I mean, these are things even that I've wondered about, because oftentimes, like from a sequencing standpoint, what happens is that we'll get like a progress report, like from an in-classroom progress report, and then either immediately preceding or immediately after we'll get these test score results. And I guess what I'm saying is that I just from a narrative standpoint, I just wonder if there are other ways so that this data does not feel too overwhelming for parents, particularly for parents who, you know, their involvement and engagement would be probably very helpful in trying to support their child's academic journey. So I just wanted to name that, and maybe, you know, just put out there that maybe we can think about some alternative ways to try to better engage parents when this data becomes available, because it can feel very, I mean, I'm speaking for myself, it can feel very overwhelming. And so I don't know whether or not there's some other things that maybe we can think about doing to encourage or improve parental participation around this type of information.
That makes a lot of sense. Thanks for sharing that. I do think it can be really overwhelming for folks. And if they don't have a good sense of how to use it, they just kind of disregard it and don't move forward with it. One of the things that we are doing in the upper grades, 2nd through 5th grade, is hosting APTT meetings, academic parent teacher meetings. And they are sharing, most of the classes have chosen to use some of this standardized assessment data as their benchmarking. And so I think that teachers have gotten very comfortable kind of explaining at a more parent-friendly level what this data means, particularly for the students that they're serving right in that grade level. And I hope that is effective, but we continue to kind of think about that as well. So we're not just delivering the results in paper and hoping that people engage with it, but it is important. So thank you for mentioning it.
Yeah, thanks.
I had a couple questions I did want to chime in as well. Thank you for this. It was a lot of data, but as an engineer, I kind of love that kind of stuff. But I will ask though that one, in the small groups and interventions, things like that, I think seeing those types of things are great. And I think there are probably a lot of parents at the East End that they may not attend this, they may not watch this, that it would maybe good for the next meeting at the PTO meeting. It is actually virtual this time, and it may be a good opportunity for an abbreviated version of this to kind of point out some of the things that are happening. And one of the big reasons why I'm asking that is because one of the big takeaways from the PTO meetings have been they want to see more academic after school programming that even the PTO could help raise money and help to put together. And so making sure that they aren't that as a PTO, we aren't going and doing things that we're doing in complement with you all. So the programming that we help to fund aligns with what you all are seeing as the needs, and that the right students are a part of it and you all are engaged in order to help make sure that is happening. And so that's kind of letting you know of something that I think the PTO wants, but also seeing if there's a way that by presenting at the next meeting, that could also be a thing.
I would be happy to present at the next East End PTO meeting. So feel free to send me an invite.
Perfect. I will make sure you get one. And I think my other question was more around, how are you all measuring culture? I know culture was mentioned in that in there, but how are you all measuring it? I think we talked about in the last meeting engagement with staff and surveys and things like that. And I also think families was talked about as well. But what are the things you all are doing to kind of measure what culture looks like from a family's perspective and from a staff perspective?
That's a great question. I think there's multiple kind of ways that we get at culture data. We just are in the process of administering a student survey called Panorama, which gets at students' own perceptions of how their teachers feel about them, how they feel about school, things like that. And so that survey is being administered currently 3rd through 5th grade at both campuses. And so I think that is one sort of student-centered culture measurement that we have. Additionally, we look at attendance data as a measure of culture. And I know that's not the only reason why students come to school, but if students love being at school, then they are more likely to come, even if there are other struggles that they might be having, right? So that's one measure. Re-enrollment's another way that we measure culture at both campuses, making sure that students that we enroll at each campus are coming back. And then also in terms of culture data, we look at our teacher evaluation, like our teacher observation results. Part of the thing that we evaluate with our teachers is what their classroom culture feels like and looks like, how comfortable students seem, how happy students seem, how willing they are to participate. So that's another piece of the way that we measure culture. And then also sort of staff perspectives. We measure that through what's called a survey from the New Teacher Project called Insight Survey. And so teachers fill that out twice a year to get their perspectives on how they think leadership is doing, what they think about their school culture, what they think about the academics at the school. And then also sort of more qualitatively through these listening sessions that we do.
Got it.
Julia, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Just to piggyback on that, if there are some other, I don't have any ideas to throw out at this moment, but if there are any ideas that could be more of leading indicators for parents, because the one like re-enrollment is one, it's too late by that point, and like, so any indicators that could be drawn out, and even as a part of the conversation with the PTO, even trying to see if the families, if folks might throw some of those out. It'd just be positive to see if we can find some of those, because I think a lot of folks, to the earlier conversation about EdFest and DCI, there are a lot of families that have questions, and the more engaging with them now and understanding kind of where they are, it'll help with the re-enrollment. It'll help with them advocating for their friends and neighbors to enroll their kids here. So
I love that idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
Julia, I want to turn Tim's question on its head a little bit, because what, for me, as a psychologist and an HR person, what you described is really, you're doing assessments of existing or actual culture. And so my question has to do with more of what does Stokes leadership do in terms of prescribing culture or identifying desired culture? So what is the desired standard for attendance and punctuality? What is the desired? So once again, how are we leading in creating culture rather than having culture create itself? So if you could just speak briefly about that, I'm curious.
Yeah, that's a great question. The instructional leadership team reflects at the end of each school year on a whole host of data points, including some of these culture data points, and creates goals and then interventions related to each of those goals that we are implementing. And so this past school year, we didn't create goals around attendance or re-enrollment, but we are currently looking at the data and analyzing it to create some of those goals in the instructional leadership team to make sure that we're targeting those specific pieces. We do create goals in terms of the output from teachers in creating their classroom culture. Those are things that we really target specifically around making sure that teachers have been trained in responsive classroom and restorative justice and peace of mind practices, making sure that we are, as an instructional leadership team, doing walkthroughs of all of the classrooms and taking quick snapshots of what classroom culture looks like in each of these classrooms and things like that, and spending some time analyzing it.
Thank you. Great.
Yeah, continuing training with our staff, like on, social justice. That's something that we really want to build into our culture, that we are a school that about that we want our kids to be little social justice activists. Anecdotally, how many people participate in some of our activities. So when we have like the fall outing, we had a whole bunch of folks show up for these different activities that we have. Not the fall outing, I'm sorry, the Taste of Stokes. I think it's every Thursday or every Friday, depending on which campus, but we have the color parties where we invite parents for the pre-K classes to come in, and they're learning their colors, red, orange, yellow, green, blue. And we have like a green party or a blue party, or this last one was the rainbow party. It was all the colors combined because they already went through the whole rainbow. giving parents opportunity to participate in a lot of these extracurricular activities, and having celebrations like Hispanic Heritage Month, Black History Month, Women's History Month, all of these different presentations. I think that builds also the culture. I don't know how to fully measure that, unless I walk around and see how many happy kids we have in the building smiling, a lot. One of the things that did come up in the listening session was that post-COVID, there seems to be a little disconnect with the teachers and the parents. We used to do home visits where we would go and set goals with parents in the beginning of the year. Some teachers want that back. It was, if some of them felt like it was a burden until they did it, and they're like, yo, it was like really positive. So maybe that's something that we can discuss on how to bring that back. It's, we do pay teachers for their time outside of school to go visit families. But some of them did request that during the listening sessions. So stuff like that to help build the culture as well.
Great, thanks, Bob.
Any
Amy,
other questions?
you had other questions?
Oh, yes. Julia, you mentioned earlier about the academic partnering, I guess, percentages, and they were a little lower at one of the campuses. And I guess, what methods we noticed they were a little higher at one campus than the other. Were the methods the same in terms of outreach? Were they all like in-person sessions, or were they in-person and virtual? Like, what options did parents have to participate?
Yep, I believe that and I'm not sure I have this fully, so don't quote me. I mean, quote me, but don't quote me on this. I believe that they were all virtual. All the sessions last year were virtual. This year we are having in-person academic parent teacher team meetings with the whole, because we think it's those meetings are a really good opportunity for families to both learn about the assessment results in a digestible way, but also to build community in the classroom, because they all get together in one group, and there's often snacks, and they can meet each other and talk to each other. And so we are having those sessions virtually. In person this year, but we're also offering parent-teacher conferences virtually as well. And in terms of the outreach, I couldn't tell you specifically how each classroom outreached for parent-teacher conferences last year. I do know that everyone uses a sign up on Parent Square for like scheduling them, but I'm not sure how teachers reached out to families to let them know specifically. But I do know that they often use the WhatsApp groups and things like that to remind people to sign up.
And we're thinking about like different, I know you just mentioned the whole home visits. We used to pay teachers to do that because it was outside of the norm. In terms of offering opportunities for reach out throughout the day, for those who might have not available during the typical school day, maybe just some ideas to bounce around, to think about, later sessions and how we can engage people who have unusual work schedules. I'm not sure if that's a difference between the campuses on parent availability, to participate, but maybe something to explore or partner with the PTA to just make sure we're giving ample opportunity for staff with varying schedules. I also noticed when you presented earlier the truancy numbers. Can you explain to us what does that mean to be truant in at this grade level? Let's just so I know.
Yep. So this only applies to kindergarten through 5th grade. So this does not apply to pre-K, just to preview that. Pre-K is not compulsory attendance grade levels. But to be truant for kindergarten through 5th grade is to have more than 10 unexcused absences in a school year. And so Stokes excuses absences for religious holidays, for illness, for pre-planned and approved travel if families will do makeup work, family emergencies, things like that. But if a student is truant, it means that they had more than 10 unexcused absences in the school year.
Okay. So if they present a letter for medical or something, then they're excused. So these are all the people who maybe they have excused, but they just don't do the paperwork. So they have to go down in the books as unexcused.
Okay. Yeah. For short-term illness, we don't require a doctor's note. So even if they had called or texted to let us know that they were sick, they would be excused. But this is the case where it's not.
And we communicate with parents when their kids aren't there. So if the kid is absent and the parent didn't call the school, we'll notify the parent and say, hey, your child was not here today. And they're like, they were sick. So they might be back like tomorrow, the day after, and then it's excused. So
yeah, would love to see those numbers lowered because I'm sure that's impacting your academic performance.
Really is.
My last question, I'm glad to hear that the sampling of the numbers that you shared is very small, because it was quite evident that the numbers are different, on the various assessments that are given. Are we all, even though the sample size is small, are we putting additional efforts or resources into mechanisms to improve performance on the various tests and also just to fill possible gaps that might be, I guess with the small sampling, we don't know if it's more prevalent or less prevalent amongst those not sampled, but are we just putting additional resources or mechanisms or changes in place to possibly change that in the future?
Yes, absolutely. Our multidisciplinary team, the MDD team, which includes our student support team coordinator and various other folks, they meet regularly, and we've developed a system last year where it's like students are automatically triggered if they have scored XYZ scores on various assessments, and we give them like a point value on these assessments to see who needs the most extra support. And so we target those students with high impact tutoring. We've been using Litera recently, which we had great results from, and also Springboard at East End for some additional reading support. And then also our online interventions. And so we target those students who trigger our data point system for additional interventions. And then they're put through what's called the student support team process. And so there's a meeting with families, additional interventions are attempted, and then those are tracked very specifically. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm just glad to hear we're implementing additional processes. Thank you.
And Amy, in addition, I reached out, I spoke to an executive director of a school in Ward 8 who serves the demographics that are similar to East End. They have a 92% attendance rate, which is phenomenal. So I reached out to him, see if maybe myself and like a few others can go visit his school and see what are the things that they're doing for parent engagement, what are the things that they're doing to make sure that the kids are here in their seats every day on time. So that's something that we're gonna hopefully be doing before December, depending on. I want to take like a group of like probably like 5, including like Julia and the assistant principal, the student support coordinator, the parent coordinator, to visit the school to see what they're doing. And I'm sure it's not a one, I'm sure it's multiple things that they're doing, but
sounds great. That's a great attendance record. Yes.
Okay. Any other questions for Julia?
Oh, sorry. One other just quick thing is that the meetings with the parents, they're very, because you have to get them all in, they're very, very short. So I would say for any family that needs help with understanding those numbers, that's probably not enough of a window for that. And so just thinking about an opportunity for them to have a little bit more time to be able to digest that would probably be just my suggestion.
That's a great idea. We have a data manager at each campus now, and so I feel like maybe they could offer some signups for office hours for little 15 or 30-minute meetings. Thank you for sharing that. It's a good point.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on that too. I do think that the windows for parents are short. I mean, even, you know, with the parent teacher conference model, you know, and with the frequency in which those meetings take place, you know, 15, I think is it 15? It may, I don't even know if it's 15 minutes. They're very short windows, and I get it that, you know, there's so many people that you have to manage. So, you know, just to piggyback on what Tim said and to get back to, you know, just, you know, for us to continue to, for you all to continue to think about alternative ways to engage parents that works for all of the different types of circumstances, situations, all those things. I mean, one last thing that I'll throw out here, just listening to this conversation is, you know, I don't know, like, would it make sense to maybe even consider, for example, like on the school calendar, in the same way that you all have like parent professional development days for teachers, like maybe there could be some half days slotted in there, like specifically for parents, so that as a parent, you can look at the calendar ahead and know that on November 17th, that there's going to be a half day of like parent and you know, where parents can come and maybe listen to staff, have more time to engage and kind of absorb information, so that there are not so many different, because there are a lot of, I mean, you know, it's part of being a parent, right? It's like that has a kid in school. Like there are so many different things that parents are asked to participate in. So I don't know, just another suggestion on another way to approach it is maybe to identify some days on the calendar in the next calendar year that are solely reserved for parents to listen and learn and engage around some of these academic and data informed sessions.
That's a great idea. Thanks.
One of the assessments that they do in pre-K, they show this is where we're at. This is, you know, or this is where a student at grade, you know, fourth grade, age 4 should be. And then it's a gradient, like this is where your child's at, this is what they need. And I'm wondering, Julia, and I mean, it sounds difficult, but there's a lot of different assessments. Like when we do dibbles, if we say, you know, a fourth grader should be at level R, your child's at level P, you know, this is what this is where they need to be, this is where they are, and this is what we're doing to get them to where they need to go, or this is what needs to happen in order to get them. But
Yep.
I don't know if that might be too difficult with all the different assessments.
No, I mean, I think most of our assessment results actually come with that kind of information already populated in the reports. But I think to everybody's point, it may not be accessible to families, for all families anyway, to understand that and implement specifically. And so I think providing some additional support around that.
Yeah, like I think digesting all of that is, it can be overwhelming, as it was stated earlier.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions, final questions for Julia, so she can get back to her Saturday? We appreciate her her support and great data.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julia.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Okay. All right. That concludes staff presentations. At this point, I'll move us forward to committee reports. Just briefly, if there's nothing to report, just simply say nothing to report. Starting with Carlos from the Finance Committee. Anything additional?
Nothing additional to the report provided earlier.
Thank you, sir. Governance Committee, Amy or Tracy,
Nothing, no report at this time.
Okay. Academic Excellence, Kira. Can you hear us, Kira? You just went back on mute. Okay. And then let me circle to Development Committee, Adina. Okay, so Kira said nothing to report.
No. Just a couple of quick things, and Erica, I might pull you in for support, because I think a lot of that information has come from you. But One, just to reiterate my excitement to have Tim join the committee. I mean, I just want to say that out loud and to express our appreciation for Tim jumping in on this committee. You know, I truly feel that Tim is bringing some great value and expertise to the conversations that we continue to have on the development committee. We did meet on the 12th of October. And so just to share with the board, and, you know, again, Erica, please fill in all of the blanks that I'm about to leave here. But we did meet on the 12th, and a big chunk of that conversation, there were three things that we discussed. One was the individual donor program and just having a conversation about kind of revitalizing that program, identifying a donor platform that works best and can be best incorporated with the other platforms that the school is using. And we also talked about the need to continue to finalize PR and development materials for outreach to you know, a diverse pool of prospective donors. And then also just talked about all of the contact management systems that exist and trying to compile data from all the different places to ensure that the right people are on the right outreach lists for any kind of outreach. But Erica sent an update to us a few days ago to say that she and others on the team had researched a new platform and have decided upon a platform. And it sounds like, and Erica, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like we will be ready to kind of kick off a Giving Tuesday campaign, which I think is great because I mean, individual donor programs absolutely are essential to the overall development operation.
Yes, absolutely. That is the goal. That is the plan. That is the goal. We actually have been meeting internally for the past week plus to plan for a Giving Tuesday campaign with staff. We have also met with a PTA member, communications person at the Brooklyn campus to help kind of get the word out to families, plan to get the word out to families about the Giving Tuesday campaign. On this coming Monday, we actually have a meeting scheduled with both the PTA and the PTO from each campus to talk about the theme of the campaign is 25 Reasons to Give, and this is in celebration of Stokes School's quadricentennial completing 25 years of service. So there will be the campaign is 25 Reasons to Give. You can give in increments of 25, $2.50, $25, $250, you know, 2,500, 25,000. We want to reach as many of the community members as possible. So we're outreaching to alumni, families, previous supporters of staff of Stokes, staff, board members. We would ask board members also, because we'll be doing a lot of social media pushes or several social media pushes. And so board members, please follow Stokes on all the social media platforms. And also we would ask that you push out to your contacts for the Giving Tuesday campaign. Let's see, am I missing anything, Adina?
I don't think so. I think that's everything. I think it's great that we're in a position to do this. I will just add that, I don't know, maybe not now, but maybe we should determine a goal for each board member for Giving Tuesday to make sure that we are all doing our part to help make this campaign a success. But I'm not going to throw, not 2.5 million, but maybe, maybe, I don't know. Again, I don't want to take up time here. Maybe we can kind of offline on email about this. But I mean, I do think that, you know, that as board members that we should every giving season have a goal. You know, I don't know what folks thinks is reasonable. You know, whether that's $50 or $250.
Definitely a goal of 100% participation will will be reached, I'm sure, by our fellow board members. So.
Okay, great. Thank you, Nina. Okay, so then moving us forward to discussion, actions, and voting items, and there's only one outstanding, lingering, painfully incomplete process. I'll turn it over to Bobby to strong arm.
We still need, and Tim, I will have to send it to you later after this meeting, but we still need the what it's called, the conflict of interest signed by everyone every year. If you're having trouble, shoot me an email and see if I can, or again, somebody just, they printed it out at home, they signed it, they took a picture of it and got it back to me. That was great. It worked perfect. So if you can't do it on your computer, then you can print it out. If you don't have a printer, print it out at work. I don't know. But if we can get those back to me, please, I'd appreciate it.
Can we set a deadline for ourselves to get the form into Bobby by Wednesday, please?
Can you say who?
Yeah,
have none of us done it? Because I thought I did, but maybe not.
Yeah,
I feel like I signed something.
I was gonna say maybe not out people on the call, but like if someone specifically like hasn't sent it in, like let them know, because I think I did, but for all I know, you're talking about me.
It would be the same.
I will send individual emails of the ones that I don't have yet, and hopefully you didn't send it back to me and it went to my junk, because so
well, I wasn't here in September, so I will make sure I get mine back to you, Bobby. So you don't need to send me a reminder, so I'm good.
Bobby, I sent mine twice, so if you didn't get it, you need to call me.
I got yours, Carlos. Thank you.
All right, guys. I appreciate the energy around it. So let's get this all done by Wednesday. All right. Thank you, Bobby. All right. At this point, I think that concludes all the open session stuff. So I have my little script here. The next agenda item is to enter into executive session to discuss personnel matters, including the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, performance, evaluation, compensation, discipline, demotion, removal, or resignation of government appointees, employees, or officials pursuant to DC Official Code 2-575B10, and to consult with an attorney to obtain legal advice, and to preserve the attorney-client privilege between an attorney and a public body pursuant to DC Official Code 2-575B4A. May I have a motion to enter into executive session?
Hi,
I make a motion.
Yes, I make a motion.
And I'll second the motion.
Second. The motion has been moved and seconded. So at this point, we will move to closed session. This will be a little different than normal for us. I'm going to ask that Tim, Bobby, and Erica join us in executive session for a portion of it,